Good evening. My name is John once again, and tonight we're going to discuss libertarianism. Uh, to begin, I believe libertarianism is a very jaded or miscued concept, so to speak. I think it's wrong uh, to go on it as the personal aspect of libertarianism and say that consenting adults should be able to do as they want because we're consenting adults has no regard for anyone else in the public spectrum, for anybody else's, fundamental or natural rights. Perfect example of this is I happen to be fairly good with weapons, uh, especially making them. And under a libertarian views, I should be able to build these weapons and have the right to sell them to any other consenting adult. Uh, what they do with them is nobody else is concerned because they're a consenting adult and they choose to buy my product, so to speak, uh, which is fine and dandy until that person decides no longer to use that product for sport or for fun or for hunting. And they decide that they want to do a mass genocide. And at that point, you've taken out the view of respecting others and their natural rights. Uh, and I mean, that to me goes as simple as heroin or prostitution. Look at prostitution; they should be allowed to prostitute themselves to another consenting adult. Well, the problem is what about diseases? How does that affect, that person's family on both sides of the spectrum? What happens if that person, the prostitute, then becomes pregnant? Who's responsible for that child? What if that child is now given to the state, a ward of the state, so to speak? Well, that financial burden is now falling to others because that person decided to do a career path that had consequences potentially. Now, there's many aspects you could view in that on both sides, to where ultimately I think there is no argument that libertarianism is flawed. There's no way you can just allow adults to do as they please because they're consenting. There's always going to be consequences, and there's always going to be the snowball effect, which will roll downhill to somebody else to take care of the burden for whatever it is that they did. That's basically the essential of why we have laws to begin with, to protect everybody's natural rights. So it denies you some rights for the greater good. Same aspect falls into when you talk about an economic factor. If you believe you own 100% of what you make, that's great. I believe you do too. But the problem is we have all banded together under our government and agreed that we will all pitch in to help. And when I say pitch in to help, I mean for the greater good of society, for us. I want somebody who will go and fight wars and protect my home. I want somebody who's patrolling the streets at night to make sure I don't have a crazy mob trying to come raid my house for what I have. And that's where it comes down to. If you believe that everything you own is naturally on yourself and it should be all free markets, then there's really no different. You say you want free market. Well, what happens for those who can't afford protection for their land, their family, their house? That's not necessarily right, but I guess you could argue for it. However, I think that there are countries out there, I know there's countries out there where you can go and make 100% what you want to make and keep it all for yourself. But the problem is like I said, there is no protection for your liberties, your natural rights. And that is the difference between our country and others, is we have all agreed to these natural rights and we have agreed to take on the burden of paying for them, and that's why you pay taxes. It's not for any other reason. It's for the greater good of society, and we have all agreed to that when we said we are Americans, that we will contribute to the society. I hope I covered this to the best of my ability, to your liking, and I look forward to next week, and we'll